Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the February 1st meeting of the Santa Barbara MTD Board of Directors. Hope everyone's doing well. It's a beautiful day outside after a cloudy day yesterday. I'm going to start with just a little side note. Happy birthday, Goleta. How about that? We'll hear a little bit more from that from Paula. So I'm going to do a roll call, and Paula, I'm going to start with you and let you say anything you'd like at this point.
I just want to say it's 20 years. How did that happen? And it's a great celebration we're going to have at Stowe House on the 5th of March. Please come from 11 to 4. It's going to be a lot of fun. So it's a great day. And I like I said earlier, I should have brought my party hats.
You should have brought you. Send the memo next time.
I will.
Okay. Congrats, Goleta.
Thank you. And I'm here, present.
Yeah, you're here. Mr. Sarkar.
Present.
Macquarie. Mr. Macquarie, I can see you. His video or his audio isn't working, but I will check him in as present at the meeting. Director Lemberger.
Present.
Vice Chair Tabor.
Here, and also noting that Goleta doesn't look a day over 15.
Well spoken, and I am here. So we do have a full board quorum this morning. That would take me then to the report regarding the posting of the agenda, please. Christina?
Good morning. The agenda was posted on Friday, January 28th, 2022 at MTD's administrative office, mailed and emailed to those on the agenda list, and posted on MTD's website.
Excellent. Thank you so much for all of that. That takes us to item 4. This is a status report on the COVID-19 state of emergency. This will be on each of our agendas until further change. Is then the staff report. Jerry, you want to say anything? There is a recommendation that we need to make a motion per the staff recommendation. We did this last week. I don't know if we need a presentation. Do I have a motion to approve making the staff findings?
Motion to approve, Chair.
Okay, I have a motion from Director Prody. Looking for a second.
Second.
Director Tabor, can we do a roll call vote on that, Madam Clerk? Or actually, I could do that. I'll just do it. Director Sarkar.
Vote to approve.
Director Prody.
Aye.
Director Macquarie. Thumbs up, Chuck. Audio still not working. Thumbs up. Yep. Okay. Director Lemberger.
Aye.
Vice Chair Tabor.
Yes.
Chair Davis votes yes. That motion is passed unanimously. That takes us to the consent calendar. There are 2 items. First is the approval of the prior minutes for the meeting of January 18th, 2022. And item 6, this is a cash report for the period between January 8th and January 21st, 2022. Comments, questions on either of those 2 items for staff? Mr. Strauss raising his hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up the question Director Lemberger asked at the last meeting regarding the TDA LTF funds. Yes, they were reflected in the cash balance on that particular cash report.
Good, excellent.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve the consent calendar.
Director Tabor, motion to approve. Is there a second?
I can second that.
Director Sarkar is the second. Roll call vote on this. Director Sarkar.
Aye.
Director Prody.
Aye.
Director Macquarie. Thumbs up, Chuck. Oh, he's not even on the screen. Okay, we're going to pass on that. He's not there. Director Lemberger.
Aye.
Vice Chair Tabor.
Yes.
Chair Davis. That motion passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with 1 absent at the point. Okay, that takes us to the item 7, public comment. This is the item for the public to address items that within our purview, but not on our current agenda today. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone who wishes to speak under general public comment?
I have no public comment at this time.
Okay, takes us to our first major item. Item 8, this is service change work plan update for fiscal year 2022-23. Mr. Estrada, you want to open this up?
Yeah, Chair Davis, I'd like to hand this off to Ms. Blackerby, our Planning and Marketing Manager, to provide you with an informational update on the status of our service planning process for this coming year. Hillary?
Great.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and Board, and happy birthday, Galita. So got two items on the agenda today. This one is talking about this this work plan that we're undertaking now and what we're looking towards service changes in August. And then the next one will be what happened last quarter. All of it is inextricably linked, of course, more than it ever was before the pandemic. And so I don't have slides for this particular agenda item. I just wanted to sort of have a conversation about where we stand now and why the crystal ball is a bit foggy, right? And in looking to the future as far as service levels and things like that. First off, I'll say, you know, in the before times, normally our service change work plan would be, you know, there are a few lines that have on-time performance fixes that they need, running a little slow, things like that. We're not seeing anything that's particularly concerning at this point with regards to that. So that's good. Other reasons that we would be, other changes we would generally make, maybe there's a routing issue or a bus stop needs to be moved or whatever, and we'll be doing that. Don't have any of those proposed at this point. So what does it look like now? You know, I mean, just to kind of bring you up, and I know I feel like I bring this up every meeting, but where we are with service levels right now. So in March and April of 2020, right, we suspended several lines, some associated with the university and the community college, some that are, you know, like the shuttle services and things like that. And so they are still suspended until August, when we brought back the 15X and 16, when City College came back partially in person, 15X on a smaller scale than before, so it's not as frequent. 16 came back full. Then in September, when UCSB came back to campus, really basically 100%, we brought back the line 28 with 18-minute headways, as opposed to what it was before the pandemic, about 10 to 12 minutes. Those are back. Obviously, the junior high and high school boosters have been running since spring of 21, when those schools came back in. So that's where we find ourselves now. But also with this latest Omicron spike, we find ourselves with, you know, grappling with workforce constraints. I know Jerry and I sound like a broken record at this point, talking about that really is our biggest limitation, having enough people to do the work, right? To do the work to keep the service levels where they are, or at a lower level, or certainly, you know, getting anywhere near increasing service. The past month, we've been in a situation where we've had to cancel trips pretty much every day. It's definitely better last week than it was in the 2 prior weeks. And it's definitely better this week than it was last week, as people return to work. So that's the context of what we're doing looking into the future. We, at this point, recommending the same service hours that we have in this fiscal year, the same levels. We are looking at the tea leaves, looking at everything we can. Obviously, we know that the HR department is doing everything they can to staff up, to make sure everybody who works here now stays healthy, and stays being able to work. But those are the unknowns. Those are the things that we really can't control for into the future, especially future spikes and things like that. So all that said, I mentioned in the staff report service that we've been planning to bring, right? But we just have not seen yet that right time to do it, having the workforce to make sure we've got the service we've got out on the street, that's maintained, and then we're able to up that. So two of those big things that are currently on hold: microtransit, starting that in Goleta. That we've had that planned for several years. We've had the operating funds for a year-long pilot identified with LC top funds. The thing that was holding us back was the vehicles. We had to go through several two different procurement rounds because Ford decided they weren't going to build a certain kind that we had already ordered. But now we do have those vans, right? We've got 3 beautiful battery electric vans for the service, which is great, but now we don't have the people to start it. So that's something that we do hope to start. Can't say when. My hope is this calendar year, but it just remains to be seen if we're going to be able to pull that off with the people, because we want to, if we're going to do it, we want to do it right. We want it to be successful. The other one is the line 19X. This is something that in an agreement with SPCAG at the very beginning of 2020, before the pandemic began here in California, we, as part of some of the phases of the HOV project, we were able to make an agreement to get some funds from the traffic management plan associated with that to fund a new line temporarily, what we're calling the 19X, which is an express service, peak service with a midday round trip to from Carpinteria, stops on the east side, and then heads to City College, round trip in the middle of the day. And then there's 2 p.m. trips heading southbound again. There's a lot of components of that. Really excited about it. I think it'll be very successful because of the different markets that it serves. We've been asked for a 1-seat ride from Carpinteria to City College. We've been asked for a 1-seat ride from the east side to City College. This would give us both. This would also give Carpinteria an express back because we, suspended the 21X now several years ago, in 2018. But again, we were even ready to start this. We were ready to start this actually later this month, about a month and a half ago. But when we saw what happened with the spike, we decided it wasn't the right time. We weren't able to do it. So those are 2 things that are sort of holding on that we hope to bring when the time is right. The fact is, we have a really high level of service. We have a lot of service out before the pandemic, even now with all the other lines suspended. And that's something that we're having to take a look at. That, the question may not even be, the more realistic question may not be, when do we bring back all this service, right? No matter what it looks like, but is there a world in which we have to go even further, right? And we have to go further down from where we are. Nobody wants to do that. As also your marketing manager, I hate that. But we have to be realistic with what our resources are. So that's where we're at on that. I mentioned a few of the other, obviously, we're deep in our short range transit plan. This is going to take a look at a lot of those components of what we're able to do going forward, both on this very constrained basis, workforce constraint and all that, but then looking to the future, that if things get brighter, what could we do better, more efficiently, make things more convenient. I mentioned in the staff report a few other ongoing community planning efforts that are taking place that we're participating in. The Isla Vista Community Mobility Plan, which is funded, a planning grant funded by the Air Resources Board Sustainable Transportation Equity Project. Very, very cool. They've got a consultant on board. They're starting to do outreach, and it's really exciting, basically to create a multimodal community mobility plan for IB. There's going to be a ton of outreach. We'll be involved. There's supposed to be a pop-up bus-only lane on El Colegio. So we're in conversations with the county. They've never done anything like that before, obviously. And so trying to learn together on what that would look like for probably a couple weeks. in the spring. So that's very exciting. And obviously Isla Vista is very important to our service as far as ridership, but also, you know, there's a lot of history there. On the State Street front, I don't need to tell our chair what's going on with that, but State Street Advisory Committee created by the City of Santa Barbara to address the development of a State Street master plan. That committee is underway. Both Chair Davis and I serve on that committee. It's grappling with much more than transportation and, you know, do we open the street or not? There's a lot going on there, but one component will be transportation. And I believe a whole meeting on the topic, not just transit, but bikes, pedestrians, all that stuff will be upcoming in the next 6 months, let's say, maybe 3. And so that's something to look forward to. Obviously, we will participate in that, but I think, you know, we want the public to talk about that too, but we don't have shuttle service downtown right now or on the waterfront. And so that's a question people keep asking us as an agency that runs the service. And we sort of try to explain the context with the city and the funding and all of that. So that's where we stand with that. As far as Goleta, Old Town, the Complete Streets project, you know, sort of exists waiting for funding, but the interim striping plan, I've been in conversations with staff and consultants with the city to see if, you know, as we talk about the State and Hollister corridor and transit priority projects, and if somebody's putting paint on a road, we want to be in a conversation to see, are there ways we can optimize our service through that corridor? And so having conversations with folks about that, so we don't miss the boat in case there are some opportunities there. And then we're also participating on the stakeholder working group for the Carpenter local road safety plan. This is a plan that some jurisdictions are doing. Goleta recently did theirs, participated on that as well. But Carpenter is just looking at, you know, looking to improve roadway safety for all modes in Carpinteria. So they're having a good conversation about that. Good mix of people and some good projects that they're mentioning. Most of it, you know, has to do with pedestrians and cyclists, but obviously all of our riders are pedestrians and sometimes cyclists before they get to us. So with that, Jerry, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add on any of these items, but.
No, I think you've covered pretty much everything. You know, at this point, kind of the state we're in, it's really the same thing I think a lot of agencies are struggling with right now with the labor shortfall plus the surge. And I think, you know, this week has been better. Last week was a little bit better this week, but we're still struggling. And you know, again, hats off to the operations team down there and how hard they're working to keep as much service on the street every day. So, you know, much appreciated. You know, going forward, as Hillary said, you know, we'll be back to you in March, you know, after we get through the draft budget to kind of lay out what we're thinking. But, you know, as you know, throughout this pandemic, it's kind of, here's what we think we can do. And then based on the resources, we'll put as much of that out as we can. So that's really going to be probably the, I think pretty much it in a nutshell coming when we come back to you in March.
Yeah, and one thing about March and April, so, you know, traditionally we're not doing a short range transit plan at the same time. And so we would come to you in March, tell you what our proposals are for August changes, and then go out to the public, you know, lately, virtually and through the survey and explainer online to talk about those changes. Since in April, we're planning to do a much larger, you know, activation and outreach around the short range transit plan, you know, sort of network strategies. We're going to fold whatever comes of this that has to do with the service changes into that, right? As that conversation. So if we're reaching out to people, talking to people, one survey, one meeting, one pop-up, you know, like, so we're not going to have to duplicate efforts. So those things will be combined on the outreach piece.
Great. Thank you for the updates. And any questions and comments from board members? You got a raise hand signal down at the bottom too, guys. You can use that during the meeting. I'll try to look for those things. Mr. McCory, Director McCory, Chuck.
Yeah, sorry for getting my audio in late.
Well, it's okay.
Is the council, Carpenter City Council, are they pretty much aware of the 19X?
I know that the city staff is, we'd hoped to be rolling something out and engaging all of them. I believe they're aware of it. At least their transportation committee, it's my understanding they know about it. But since we don't have a launch date or anything, we haven't made a big show of it yet. But yeah, the staff's definitely aware of it.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Director Perotti, Paula.
Thank you, Chair. My question is on the microtransit. I believe I've asked this question before and I just can't recall what the answer was. It's a 3-year pilot program. Does that 3-year kickoff start once we start driving the van and actually providing service? Are we at risk of losing the full 3 years?
Good question. So as far as the 3 years go, so we first got a 1 year's worth of operating, and that's planned for Goleta. Later, we got sort of 2 more and we were able to combine them in. Our plan, at least, right, unless money and operators fall from the sky, is to do that pilot for a year in Goleta. We've modeled 2 other areas, one in Carpenter and one in Santa Barbara. And so there may be, at that year point, we may move to a different place, right, and try that out. It remains to be seen because it's a pilot and we want to know how it goes. I do think it'll be very successful in the area we've planned. So that's the idea for a year in Goleta. And are we at risk at losing the funds? Not at this point, but we really do need to get started. So yeah.
Well, thank you for that, Hillary. I know I've had several people come up to me from the community asking when it's going to get going. So I think there's a demand. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
There definitely is. And we get contacted by people, you know what we need? We need something that goes from here to here. And I'm like, guess what? It will someday do that exact thing. And I'm working with Goleta staff, Mayor, to we have one of the vans out at the birthday celebration next month because it will actually go to Stowe House. So it'll be in the zone. So it'd be cool to be out there and show people what's coming someday.
Perfect opportunity. Thank you, Hillary.
Yeah.
I see Director Sarkar, but before you go, Arjun, just following up on what Director Perotti just asked, do we know from other agencies how much time it takes for a new program like this to kind of get into the community and get, if you will, up to a level of knowledge and acceptance? Is a year enough time is really what I'm getting at.
I do think it is. I mean, we'll see what the uptake here is, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of jurisdictions where they've done it and it's become, like they can hardly handle, the demand, right? And so, and some of them, they kind of know right away it's done. So I think we'll know, but certainly a year will give us enough time, and I think we'll know sooner. Things will ebb and flow and depends on marketing too. But yeah, I think we'll know.
Good. Thank you. Director Sarkar, Arjun, go ahead.
I just wanted to do an appreciation for your social push out or outreach, Hillary. I just really appreciated the ongoing push out on your on our social media, and specifically the one post that was for the UCSB, the history of UCSB. That was really cool.
Oh yeah, well that's big thanks to Allison Hall in our department, who she sifts through all the archives and looks up all that cool old stuff that she posts.
Really fun to watch. Other questions, comments from the board? Director McCrory, Chuck.
Yeah, after the 1 year trial in Goleta, is all the service going to say move to Carpinteria for the 2nd year, and will we then abandon? If the service is successful in Goleta, are we going to abandon it, or how are we going to work that?
Good question. Jerry may have thoughts on this, but we don't know yet. We don't know yet. I mean, we have 3 vehicles, which is really enough to do service in one place at a time, right? There's like 2 out there and 1 spare. So we are applying for some grant funding for more vehicles, but again, it's the limitation of having enough people to do the work, and also money and vehicles. So yeah, Jerry.
Yeah.
Mr. Estrada, go ahead.
Yeah,
ahead.
the original plan was essentially test the South Coast for microtransit on-demand service. And we felt the best market to start with for a year was Goleta, and then Carpinteria. And right now, I think there's growing interest in Carpinteria for the service, with the shuttle service being suspended. All you have is the 20 going through, which is a critical piece of service, but they've lost that coverage route. So I think on-demand I actually think potentially is a much better solution for the city of Carpenter in the long run than a shuttle, but we need to test it. And then there's Santa Barbara. What would be the appropriate market to test it there? From there, if it's successful in any of those markets, and we believe it will be, then yeah, you have the tougher question was, how do you sustain that service, not just from workforce and financially in the long run? And is it a trade-off? Do some of the coverage routes go away? Do they get replaced with on-demand, or can you find the resources to actually extend service beyond what the service levels were previously? And I think that's why the short-range transit plan, the timing of that is so critical at this time, because it's going to help us answer that. It'd be great if we already had some microtransit experience and results to throw in there, but it's just not working out that way, unfortunately.
Well, I agree with the concept and going to different places, especially in Carpinteria. I totally agree with what you're saying about that kind of service may be better than the shuttle. But I'm just thinking about what's the PR problem if this is very successful in Goleta, and then all of a sudden we pull up stakes and leave. I don't think that's going to do us much good as far as a PR question is concerned. So I'm a little concerned about that.
Right. Again, short-term transit plan and discussion here with our strategic plan, we ought to start thinking about those questions. So it's a good question, and I see Jerry and Hillary are already thinking about it.
Okay.
It's another quandary for the planning and marketing manager. I totally agree. Yeah.
I didn't want to put it all on you, but yeah, you're right.
We'll see what I figure out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good.
No, but it's exciting because yes, it is, and the area that we modeled in Carpinteria is the city limits, but also includes Santa Claus Lane, which is a big. I know there's eventually going to be bike connections there, but right now it's kind of hard to get over there, right? Anything but a car. So, and then hard to park a car once you get there. So, I do think we have such compact communities that I think it could be really successful.
These would be great public transit opportunities for us in that regard. So let's have good problems like that. Really good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Other questions? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk, do I have anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item?
I don't see any hands raised or any emails.
Great, thank you very much. This was an informational item. We are so informed. Thank you very much for that update. And we're going to move to the next one, which is item 9, fiscal year 21-22, second quarter performance reports. Show us some graphics here, Hillary.
Okay, everyone's favorite donut charts. Okay, hello again. This is the report on ridership and all our other key performance indicators for the second quarter. So October, November, December of 2021. These are, I won't run through them again because you're about to see them, but our performance indicators that we look at every quarter. Okay, so the blue here is this year, and the teal was last year when we were not collecting fares. So again, comparing interesting numbers to no numbers or weird numbers is the name of the game here as we compare to some of the worst parts, hopefully, right, of the pandemic. So you can just see, obviously, ridership is up significantly from where it was this quarter last year, and we are collecting fares, which is a plus. Passengers, hours, and miles. Total passengers for the quarter was over 1 million, so 1,102,708. Much better than the previous year at 578,000. So obviously a big spike. Revenue hours were up as we had brought some of that service back along with miles. and it's good to see the passengers per revenue hour increasing like it did from 13.7 up to 23.6. Of course, the same quarter last year, we had significant restrictions on board of how many people could be on board. So that's where we're at that. So it's looking better. It was looking better last quarter or in the second quarter. So now, we're looking at last quarter. When I did this last, we were just looking at one quarter's worth of data. Now we look at these year to date. So these are quarter 1 and 2 combined. So the first half of the year, which I can't believe we're through it already, first half of the fiscal year. These workcourses are, 11, 6, 2, and 20. The 24X has edged into that zone, and UCSB coming back is certainly part of that. What I don't have here, I should have put another slide just to show you the second quarter. Line 28 has zoomed into the top 5. I think it was number 2 for the quarter, but it had another quarter to contend with, right? And so it's creeping up. So next, I would assume that when I show you the third quarter, line 28 will be in this number year to date. This is a little hint at that, right? This is just second quarter, top 5 lines by passengers per hour. Line 28 saw 65.8 passengers per hour. The 27 was next with 44, 24, then the 11, and then the 2, right? Obviously, those top 4 lines, they have something in common. They serve UCSB and Isla Vista, and with the university reopening, they saw a significant boom. And our other numbers, the line 2 and 6 and all those continue to increase by passengers per hour as well. So it's good to see those, and those are pulling up all the numbers. Year to date, so total ridership on the year is up 71.8% over the previous year. We're seeing this at capacity loads and 2 full aboard is sort of flip-flopping, right? We're having a lot of 2 full aboards when we had those, 15-person, 20-person caps. And now we don't have as many of those, but we see more at capacity loads. So that's up and down. So those numbers make sense. Kind of interesting. I can't totally put my finger on the wheelchair number, but the wheelchairs and bikes, and those numbers are exactly the same, 19.9% down over the quarter in the prior year. I think the community is starting to see that bicycles had a huge spike and peak in the heart of the pandemic. We saw that on board our buses as well. It seems that some people may be parking those bikes at this point instead of bringing them on board. So we're seeing that dip a bit, right? If you'll recall, we had some quarters where ridership was down by 60%, but bikes were flat, right? So bikes were, those numbers were significant, especially compared to how many people were riding the bus. It seems like it's kind of starting to level back out again. So that's where we're at with that. Still significant numbers of people riding the bikes for sure. And it's mentioned in the GM report, but while we're on the topic of bicycles, we did have a really successful little 2-week survey about bike ridership, and very interesting to see numbers of what people's experiences were of people who had brought their bikes on board before. 78% of them had said at one point or another a bus had arrived with a full rack when they intended to bring their bike on board. So we've now applied for that Measure A grant to expand those racks. Again, some absolutely ridiculous numbers for student ridership. It's up by, remember, it's up because we weren't collecting fares, collecting information, up by 690,729% over the previous year, which is great, but it's good to see it going in that direction. Obviously, for a little more normalizing, putting it over that quarter in fiscal year 19, which is pretty amazing considering we're 81% with UCSB ridership, 81% of where we were in this quarter pre-pandemic. So that would be October through December of 2018. And that's significant, right? That we're back up 81% of where we were. City College, much less, they're not back full. So that's a little slower to recover. On-time performance, you can see here, this is just for the second quarter. Our measurement is to keep everything above 80%. We had one line, and now I'm forgetting what it was in the staff report. Somebody may help me out on that one, but it was just below 80%.
20.
What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have muted. I said it's probably line 20.
I don't think it was line 20. I'm sorry. I can. Go ahead.
27, right?
27. 27. There you go. Exactly. So 27 was a little bit under 80. And then, yeah, so those are those lines. This is system-wide on-time performance. Sorry, not 100%. I know that's everyone's favorite, but we're seeing that. Those are just of trips system-wide. The line 27 has 6,293 trips in the quarter. To be clear, not all of those trips were under 80%, of course, just a certain amount. So with that, that's my last slide. Stop sharing. I'm happy to take any questions.
Good. Questions and comments. Thank you, Hillary. Questions and comments. You want to raise your hand, anyone? I'm not seeing any. Going. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item?
No public comment.
Good. Excellent. Hillary, thank you. We'll look forward to continuing. What does one comment I have on your first graph? If you flip the years, then it shows the direction things are going, right? So if the first year, all right, that just helps visually when you look at a graph to see it popped up giant in the air. But that was the hardest thing going on for you right now is how do you compare the last couple of years, which have just been anomalies?
Yes.
Right? Where's the new normal? I don't know. So we'll look forward to the future.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the report. Okay. Will take us to item 10, I believe. This is adoption of fiscal year 2022-23 Measure A program of projects. There is a recommendation that the board approve the submittal of the program of projects for fiscal year 2022-23. Jerry.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce Ms. Syed, our finance manager and interim controller, to briefly introduce the item and kind of explain the annual process of it. Yes.
Good morning, Chair Davis, members of the board. Yes, we have prepared the Measure A Program of Projects form for today's board meeting. This is an annual agenda item. SBCAG provides Measure A estimated revenues, which are reflected on the form. Fiscal year 2022-23 estimated operating revenues for MTD are just under 2.8 million. And estimated capital revenues are nearly 1.3 million. This program of projects form is submitted to SBCAG in order for MTD to receive its Measure A allocation of operating and capital revenues. And as you noted, this is an action item, and we are recommending the board approve the submittal of this Measure A program of projects form.
Are there any questions from the board? Madam Clerk, anyone from the public?
have none.
Okay. To the board, recommendation is to approve the submittal of the program of projects for the next fiscal year. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Director Bakari made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Director Perotti seconded it. I will call a roll call vote. Director Sarkar,
Aye.
Director Perotti,
Aye.
Director Macquarie,
Aye.
Director Lemberger,
Aye.
Vice Chair Tabor,
Yes.
and I vote yes. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you,
Thank-
Ms. Sayat. That's annual
Thank you.
report. Got to do it. Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. On then to, I believe, have a manager's report. Mr. Strada.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Obviously, service is always at the top of the list, but we've discussed that, and I've shared kind of the status of where we are, I think, and at this point. Looking ahead, as far as the first quarter, what you have to look forward to, what we're really going to be focused on is, budget, grants, and our TDA audit that we're working on right now, as well as the service plan process. First of all, I'd like to thank, Chair Davis and Chair Tabor of the Finance Committee for agreeing to allow us to roll up some of the things that we typically break out, like the 6-month budget revision and financial review, into the draft budget presentation in March, which is a little bit more efficient for staff. As you know, the Director of Finance and Admin position is still vacant. So we're really grateful, I think, from a staff perspective, that we're able to do that. So when we come to you in the first meeting in March, it'll be the draft budget. We'll show you our estimates, for this year, where we are, which is kind of your 6-month review. And then we'll also probably, if we need any recommendations for budget revisions related to the capital budget for a lot of the projects, we'll recommend them through that at that time. I think that would be the most efficient way for us to proceed. And I appreciate your support for that and consideration of staff time. As you can see in the GM report, there's a number of grant opportunities before us. The TERSIP, which is state, is available, and the team is working on that matter. We've been focused on it for months, actually for a couple of years since the last round, and we're really excited. I think in the next GM report, we'll share with you specifically what we're looking for, primarily buses and some of the details that we're looking to have funded. There are some other grant opportunities as well, and I think we'll be sharing more of that at the next board meeting. And then finally, we are in the midst of our TDA audit. The TDA audit, Transportation Development Act, is a performance audit. That's every 3 years. It's triennial. The big ones are the financial audit, the single audit that we get every year, which includes some compliance. Then there's the 2 triennials. One is the federal triennial review, which we went through last year, which we had no findings, was really pleased with the results, and that's looking at all the federal regulations. So now we're with the Transportation Development Act, and we've conducted the first couple of meetings with the auditor, looking forward to coming back with the results. And usually there's recommendations there about things we could be doing to help with any performance issues, that sort of thing, and assessing any of the TDA requirements as well. So that's another, I think, significant item, especially for the newer board members, that you'll want to see and hear about and get updated on, because it's a really important one. And it's actually, of all the audits, the one I think, that I really focus on, because it is about performance more than anything else. So that concludes my update on the GM report. Happy to answer any questions you might have about what's there.
Any questions for Jerry? Seeing any? Thank you, Mr. Estrada. Takes us to item 12, other business and reports. Do we have anything that anyone wishes to speak on at this point? Okay. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on either of those 2 items, item 11 or 12?
Thank you for asking. I have none.
Thank you very much. That takes us to item 13 and 14. These are 2 closed sessions. Item 13 is a recess to closed session. Real property negotiations under Government Code Section 54956.8. Property is 4678 Carreal 149 North San Antonio Road. Agents and negotiators are General Manager Jerry Estrada. District Outside Counsel is Graham Lyons. Negotiating parties is Con Am Group. Under negotiation is the price and terms of payment. Item 14 is a recess to closed session. This is a public employee performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code Section 54957 and 54954. 2.5 subsection E to evaluate the performance of the district's general manager. Madam Clerk, do we have any comment on either of those two items at this time?
None.
Oh, we have no public comment. We will stand in recess to close session. Thank you, staff, for everything you've done to get to this point, and we'll come back after the closed sessions to report out and adjourn.
And at this time, I'd like to ask any attendees to exit the meeting.